So last time we were filming, I was working on the other side of this VW Beetle. This is called a pan, the chassis of a Volkswagen Beetle that is now the chassis of a fiberglass dune buggy that I'm going to try and put back together. So one of the things that I am dealing with is that this was built in 1970. And again, like I said before, I'm not being critical of anybody else's work, but I have to make sure that I redo anything that doesn't look at least safe, and sort of redo anything that is rusted or failing. So between the last time we filmed and this time, I removed the transaxle, which in a Volkswagen is just the way the engine transmits power to the wheels, and it's all one unit here. It's the axles and the brakes and the transmission that hangs on the back because the engine's in the back. So I got that out of the way to make the chassis lighter, and then that way I can move it around and work on both sides by myself, because I don't mostly work by myself, but I work by myself quite a bit. And so today, the thing that I'm going to start to do is, when you have a big project like this, it's easy to look at this and it looks really messy and ugly, and it's easy to get overwhelmed because there's a lot of stuff to do. But the reality of it is, when you scrape away the ugliness, it's really pretty solid underneath. So it's not hard to see that it'll just be a lot of scraping and cleaning to make it a lot better. And then the spots that really need welding and attention, I always just do them one at a time. So like I said, the chassis is the tiniest bit short on the one side. I laid it upside down on the floor so it has 4 points touching the same slab of concrete. And I know full well this won't be technical enough for the way some people approach a problem. But to me, if all 4 corners are touching on this flat slab of concrete, I can sort of feel okay that the chassis isn't twisted. So I'm going to be cutting the chassis almost completely apart, so then I will use the flat slab as my reference to make it flat and not twisted when I weld it back together. But you'll see that as I get going. So I'll show you a couple of the little treats that I found here from the gentleman that built it in 1970. This access panel, which I think is an antifreeze bottle cut and then screwed on. And it's super easy to get in the mode of making fun of what other people did because it looks crude. But the truth is, the guy got the car done and got to drive it around for years and years and years. And this is how he did it. And he survived it. So if you look in the hole here, this is the work that they did to shorten the clutch cable. So a VW pan has to be shortened. I think it's 14 or 16 inches. I have the instruction book at home to fit the dune buggy body. And part of what you have to do is then you have to shorten every single thing that goes from front to back. And in a Volkswagen Beetle, all the controls go back to the engine. Everything pretty much goes to the back other than the brakes. So this crudely cut hole gave access, I guess, to what he felt he needed to do to shorten the clutch cable. And I am going to weld that hole shut, and I am going to shorten the clutch cable by a more modern means of doing that, sort of in today's accepted way of doing it. So the first thing I'm going to do today is probably, I'm dying to dig into this because it's crusty and looks attractive to me to try and fix it, but I'm going to make myself go ahead and fix this hole first, right here, and then all the repairs I do to the pedal assembly, clutch cable tube, accelerator tube, I'll do from the top side after I get the bottom closed up. So I'm going to sit up and start cutting. So the kind of repair that I'm going to do this takes a lot of time with a grinder and a cutoff wheel. And this is a dangerous tool because I take the guard off of it. This makes it safe, but hard to use. So most of the time, and especially when I'm getting filmed, I'm going to try to show you that I'm safe, and I'm going to wear this protection, but you'll probably get mad when you see sections where I'm not using any protection. So the first thing I'm going to do is just clean this hole up so that I can make a nice patch for it that's not crudely cut. You ready? Just gave myself a tiny bit of a reference. It doesn't have to be perfectly straight. So this panel right here, I know from messing with Beetles all the time, is a double panel. So I'm going to probably just try to cut one layer of it so that my new plate overlaps the old inner panel. So now what I'll do is take another tool and get some of this junk off of here so I can see where the factory spot welds were. And I'll clean that edge off so that the new panel can be spot welded back to it. Not. So what I'm working toward doing now is getting that undercoating, this rubberized stuff off all around the area where I'm going to weld so that I have clean bare metal to work with. And I'm just going to try whatever works. This wire wheel might work, but you got to wear protection because the little wires will fall out at high speed and pierce you. And you may not even notice till the next day. There's a sore spot in your belly and it's a wire. So you can see here, I started to find each of these spots. That is a weld, that is a weld, that is a weld, that's a weld. That's how the factory joins panels. So I'll probably drill them a little bit and then grind away the remainder, and then I'll have a nice clean edge to weld my repair panel on. I'm just noticing a lot of this fun stuff in here. That's the old mount for the pedal assembly and where the clutch support tube should be and doesn't even exist. So I'll be making a clutch support tube and putting it in there. All right, I gotta do some more of this. And you'll see I'm just using anything around, and I'm kind of famous for that, using the wrong tools. But I'm just trying to clean out any of the undercoating that's around. Volkswagen used this really thick undercoating that I honestly believe just made things gather water and will get more rusty. If you look at these spots here, it would be because it would get a chip in it and then the water works this way underneath it. I'll probably end up taking all this off eventually. See? It's okay under it, it's just trapped moisture. Okay, so next thing I'm gonna do is drill out some of these spot welds. The wire will work good for taking the undercoating off. So I will just drill the majority of these out. Oop, that's not a good drill. I'm just gonna start each one with a small bit. That way the bigger bit will run centered in it. And again, I'm only gonna ideally drill through this one layer of metal right here, because that's all I'm trying to remove. And I know I should center punch them. bigger bit will work better because it has so much ride. So as soon as I saw that dirt rust pop through, that told me that I had the spot weld cut because the rust that had accumulated around the spot weld came up through. Apparently I haven't had a chance to ruin this drill bit yet. I usually don't have ones that cut this off. I'm impatient, so I ruin a lot of my stuff. See how the rust comes up through once I cut the weld? It comes out as powder. Powder. So I don't know if you could see when I first showed you the spot welds. Some were small and some were much bigger diameter. The bigger diameter ones are the ones the factory used to make the center section or the tunnel where the two thick pieces of plate are joined. And then the smaller ones are the ones they use to join the thin sheet metal pans to the tunnel. I'm gonna drill them both. Satisfying. So this kind of work takes so much time, and I'm not exactly sure why I enjoy it, but I think I enjoy it because it's almost like meditating. My brain goes 1,000 miles an hour all day long, day after day, and when I'm doing this work, somehow time goes by in chunks of an hour and I'm not really thinking, and that feels good to me somehow. So now I'm going to get a chisel and a decent sized hammer and see if I can knock some of what's left of the strength of these welds loose and get this piece out of here. So see, I was able to separate, that's why I was just looking for a spot to separate the two layers of metal. So remember when I said that it's made out, this tunnel, the center of this Volkswagen pan, is made out of 2 layers of plate. So the one layer is here, and this is gonna stay. That's the famous rust dust that pops up and satisfies me. And then I'll drive the chisel in through between the layers and drive them apart. That chisel cost me 50 cents at a yard sale. I love old tools. That's satisfying. That popped off. It keeps me coming back. Now I'm just picking away for another separation. Oh yeah. So that's that. That's a lot better hole to work from to patch up. So the next thing I'm gonna do is find a piece of cardboard and make myself a pattern for the hole. And again, none of this is rocket science. Like, I'm gonna grab a box I see over here. Cut the flap off. I have the luxury of one straight edge, so I'm going to line the straight edge of the cardboard up, my future template. I'm just going to use my hand to burnish it down. And you can see it gives me a nice template. Nice straight dirt lines. So then I'll cut this out. This will give me the basic size for the piece of metal that I need to make to fill that hole. So, in theory, I'll transfer that to a piece of steel. And again, I have the luxury of a square, so I won't have to cut way into the panel. I'll just use the corner. Whoa. Alright, so the one thing I'm going to remember to do so I don't ruin my magic marker is clean the oil off of this brand new piece of plate steel. Then I'll start with my square corner. Closer I get here, the less I have to fill with the welder. Actually, I'm gonna run this out. I'm gonna clean this rust up a little bit with this while it's apart. I know I didn't put my safety gear on. See this ice pick we found in the wall of the garage? Coca-Cola. And we won't show all of that either because it's kind of boring. If you're lucky, you get to see me wipe out in the stool and it kicks out from under my butt. It's a favorite. And then I'll just trim it up until it fits just right. So now I'm just gonna, the plate is made pretty close to the right size, and I'm just gonna put a sanding wheel on the grinder and sort of just sand the edges back till it just drops right into place. I usually have 4 grinders set up with all different wheels on it, but they're at my other place that I'm working right now. So I'm using one grinder just like years ago. And all I'm going to do is hold this in the hole and take note to where it's not quite slipping down inside. So I can see. First I'll do is sand off extra off of this edge so that it can fit in there as far as possible. See that it needs a little bit off right here. You can see it overlaps just a little bit. And I'll just carefully sand that. Maybe not so carefully. Tempting to do the hammer bash, but it doesn't really work. Gonna trim it the tiniest bit more. Where's my fancy Coca-Cola ice pick? A nice tight fit. Almost did the scooter wipeout. You'll eventually. So there's this whole thing in the, well, I guess it's in the automotive restoration, custom, whatever world, where there's sort of a new belief that everything should be as good as it was when it was new or better. And I understand that, but I'm restoring a buggy chassis that was built in 1970 that had hole saw holes drilled into it to make a crude connection for the clutch. And it worked. And what made me think about this is, see these ribs that run along here? This metal is embossed in a pattern to create strength. So probably the proper restoration quality thing to do would be to roll a bead into this repair plate, this 3/16 plate, and make it perfectly proper. I'm not gonna do that. It had hole saw holes and a piece of plastic pressed down antifreeze can that lasted its whole life until me. So if I weld this 3/16 plate back in here and do a half decent job, I think it will be strong enough to last until the aliens come take us over and try to figure out what I built here. So I will now prep this plate to weld in. Pretty happy with the fit of it. And there's a tiny corner taken off right here. And it'll be right, there's a little bit right here that needs to go. It'll be right near its own edges and not have much of a gap. So then what I'll do with the sander is sand the edge of the metal down at a 45 and sand the edge of this hole down at a 45 so that the welding bead goes right in the hole, and that makes sure that the weld goes all the way through and makes this panel almost as strong as the uncut original panel would have been, because the weld fills the V that I cut in with the sander. And then I will also drill holes in this edge and weld it right back. Predict it goes right in here this time. Yep. It's too much. My fancy ice pick. So that's a good fit. That'll weld up nicely. This has a slight bend in it. Can you see that in the video? It's not perfectly flat. I probably will put a slight bend in this, but I won't be able to put those reinforcements in without a lot of unnecessary work. So I don't have to keep deciding which way is the front. Okay. Okay, so you can see that what I did there was just bevel the edge on a 45. I did the same for the hole. And when I start to weld the plate in, the weld will fill this gap and make the plate almost solid because the weld will penetrate to both sides. Now I'm going to crudely try to put a little bend in it. So I have a choice now. Each dot that I drew is where a spot weld should be, and I could take the drill and spend a certain number of minutes per hole, or I can take the cutoff wheel and cut myself a slot, which will fill with weld exactly the same strength as if it was a hole. Probably better because I'm not that great of a welder. So I'm gonna go plan B, quickie style. Because again, I'm not trying to win any awards, just to make a nice strong car. So where I would have to drill a hole, I'll just cut a little slot. So that will leave me a spot to weld. Hear from my critics on this one. So what I'll do, you can see the pan has a little bend in it, a little odd contour here. I'm not going to worry about straightening this out. I'm just going to make the panel follow that. So I'll start by getting the corner welded in. So I'm just trying to establish a good lead corner for the plate. And what I want to do is be able to tap it down as I go, so I don't have to pry it up because it's easier to tap it down than pry it up. So I'll start the hole. I said I wasn't going to straighten this, but I'm already going to straighten it. I'm just gonna, it's got a low spot right here. I'm just gonna pry it up. Let's use the hammer as a fulcrum. So I will probably just give myself a good tack right there and work from that. So I'm gonna weld here. Ready? Ready, Melissa?
Yep.
So I went to my highest spot, and you can see it's sticking up there, but that's okay because it's easy to tap it down. So I'll get another spot weld here. All I'm really trying to do is get my level of my highest spot lined up. So I'll get another tack here. Ready? Melissa, ready?
Yep.
I tack it again right here, where it's still level, and then it needs to go down. So I'll tack this. Ready? 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 And each time I tack it, and then I can have easier time bending this down to where it goes. I might need to open that up just a little bit to get it to fall. Make sure I wasn't bouncing it off the edge. And that little gap is fine. That's good for penetration of the weld. You ready?
Yeah.
Alright, so now you can see I have this down nice and tight right there. So I'm going to hold this down. Crudely, of course, this is how I roll. I'll stand on the chisel that's on that, that'll hold that down, and I'll tack it in. Ready?
Yeah.
And now that's the weld. How's that corner down? Tap my way over. So it's not hard to see how that's going to be stronger than that piece of pressed stone antifreeze bottle over top of a hole saw hole. Actually, that's down nice and tight. Ready? You okay? Tack it where it's level. Ready? Ready?
Yep.
Ready? See how my cheat slots worked as good as a hole? Ready?
So that versus drilling a hole, you just needed the weld to get in there?
I just needed to have a slot to weld in quick. A hole takes longer to drill.
Gotcha.
And again, my critics can say what they want, but that's strong enough. All right, so I'm gonna go back to my spot that's level here and give it a good tack. Ready?
Yeah.
Ready? Ready? Alright, let me give this a little cut right here. I'm just backtracking a little, that was touching. Ready? Ready? Alright, I'm gonna weld for a little bit, okay? I just keep warning Melissa because we're not used to doing this together yet. Ready? That's the sound of a good weld. This is buzzing like that. I can use less wire, but ready? If this were sheet metal like a door or a fender of a car, I would only do one tiny tack at a time because the heat would shrink the metal and make it warp and buckle. This stuff's so thick and strong, it's okay to put a lot of heat into it because it's thick enough that it won't buckle and it takes the heat better because it has more mass. Ready to weld?
Yep.
Ready? Ready?
Yep.
Ready?
Yep.
Ready?
Yep.
Good?
Yep.
Good?
Yep.
Ready?
Yeah. Still one with my eyes shut. I'm good.
One more, you ready?
Yeah.
I'm gonna weld this hole up, you ready?
Look how pretty.
Everybody tell me how to weld because I taught myself, so I take feedback. I think it'll be strong. One down. 5 million to go. Pretty happy with that. I was just sitting here feeling super satisfied because there's something about taking something old that's been through it and has a lot of wear and tear and gets worn down, just kind of like maybe like we do in life, I don't know, but to be able to go back into it, cut out what was bad, and then sort of give it a renewed life or a new sense of being able to be used is, I think, what excites me about the whole idea of building a car, rebuilding a car, fixing a rust spot. There's some sense of satisfaction that I get going from what looked so ugly to me to a repair that I know is so solid and will last longer than I will. And it's nothing about how good I am at it. It's just a slow process, and you take your time and you follow it. And it's really satisfying. It'll be so exciting to get these pieces filled in, scrape the whole thing down and put a nice coat of satin black on it. It'll look like it's brand new. And that's what keeps me coming back. It's like anything you do, you have to just do it in tiny little bits, otherwise you get overwhelmed and never start. But you'll see over the next few weeks or months, this thing will come together and look like a nice new chassis. And then we'll put ridiculous power in it and have different problems. Thanks for checking it out.